The school must be respected as a place of discipline and good behavior for all who fall under the roof of the school. No parent, no visitor should come on a school compound and behave in a reprehensible way that sends a signal to the entire society that the authority of the school, the authority of the teacher, the authority of the principal, and indeed the authority of law enforcement should be disrespected, regardless of what the issues are. Children are watching, and all that we would have done if we allowed that kind of behavior to stand is to say to the little children that that is the behavior to model and take out of the school and carry it into the rest of the society.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, we do appreciate all the listeners and all the subscribers. But remember to hit that notification bell so that you're notified whenever we've uploaded a video. So we have the Prime Minister coming out and of course giving his speech on the incident that happened at a school recently where there was some altercation between law enforcement and a parent. Generally speaking, whenever you go to a school as a parent, you have to carry yourself a certain way. You have to have a certain type of deportment because you are going to be, representing your child as well, right? And if you are misbehaving, cursing, not, cooperating with the teachers, uttering expletives, and just generally misbehaving and be disrespectful to the staff and to teachers and to other parents, you're going to be viewed in a very bad light. Put it that way. And you don't want to reflect that type of light because the teachers are teaching your child and there are other kids in the school that are looking on you as a parent to emulate your behavior. And if they see a parent behave in a certain way, they're going to think it's okay to behave like that as well. That's why you see the kids with all type of friends and they cannot solve an issue. They can't solve an issue by discussing it. They don't have the tools. They don't have the social skills. They don't have the maturity and the emotional intelligence to sit down and talk about anything. They will run for a weapon. And because they see what's going on in society, they, of course, going to copy behavior, right? And we all know that a lot of people have gone through a lot of things in Jamaica and they have to behave a certain way, act loud, act boisterous, act as, disgusting as possible to survive. But they don't unlearn that behavior, quote unquote, right? And so they go through life with that toxic behavior. You have to learn how to survive. And that's why a lot of people, they fight, they curse because it's a learned behavior and they see other people doing it and it's a method of surviving, right? Especially on the lower economic scale. That's how most people learn to survive because they've gone through so much in their lives. It's like a fight or flight most of the time. They're just trying to survive, especially in the garrisons and in the lower socioeconomic sectors of the island. As I mentioned, they've never gone to therapy and that behavior is never unlearned and they pass it on to their children. A lot of us, that behavior has touched us in some way, shape, or form. So, as you heard the Prime Minister saying that no parent should be coming on school property and behaving a certain way. Children are watching. You're disrespecting the staff and you're disrespecting other parents, disrespecting law enforcement. and you know that 9 times out of 10, they will not come up against law enforcement, right? It's you against them. So I always say to every parent, let your children know that they have to respect the law. It's in their best interest. You have your rights. Teach them the rights. You can Google it. What is my rights as a citizen of Jamaica? Make sure that you know your rights, right? And that, of course, people are respecting your rights. Don't argue. Don't fight with law enforcement. If you're being arrested, cooperate. And then, if you think your rights have been violated, then, of course, you're going to take legal action. If you try to entangle with law enforcement, most of the time you're going to end up on the bad end of the stick, and it's not going to work out well for you. Who remembered the guy who allegedly spat in an officer's face? We all heard it on the news. The officer was trying to part a fight, and I think it was somewhere in the east near to Windward Road. And I believe that was last year. It happened, and the guy ended up being taken out by the officer. We haven't heard anything about that. I don't think that officer is going to be in any trouble. He spat in the officer's face when the officer tried to calm the situation down. Big offense. And when you're being directed by a police officer, you have to obey the law. So make sure you tell your children, obey officers, as long as the officer is not telling you anything that you're going to, get yourself in trouble or anything like that. But if you've been directed, listen to the officer. Most of the time, the situation can just die down and be quelled right there. But if you're arguing, you're being argumentative, you're being disrespectful, then it's going to escalate. On the other hand, the officer must at all times try to de-escalate situations by being calm, by being respectful, and by following procedures. The lady was misbehaving in the school and not following, from what we heard, allegedly not following the officer's instructions after the officer gave her direct instructions. But there is a but. There's some things that occur there that I don't agree with. For instance, the biting and the pulling of hair. Right? We know that is going out of bounds. We know that that's not procedure. And you have to be professional as an officer as well and follow procedures. Why didn't you have your handcuffs? Why don't you have like a second person with you who would be able to help you arrest someone if they're not complying? We all see how it works, in other jurisdictions, how they manage to calm situation. Sometimes it doesn't even need to reach a certain level by speaking to the citizen also with respect and letting them know you are giving them commands and they have to comply with the command. If they don't comply with the command, they can be arrested. A lot of citizens in Jamaica, they don't know their rights and they don't know what the procedures are. You see citizens fighting with officers, disrespecting officers, not listening to the officer commands or instructions, going as far as hitting, biting, doing all types of things to police officers and think they can get away with it, but they can't. No one is respecting the law anymore. And what are you telling the younger generation? That they can just go out there and just do whatever they want? They're there for a reason, and that's to keep things in order, social order. If you don't have social order, you're going to have chaos, and you can't have people behaving a certain way out in the public. And a lot of people don't even know that if you curse in public, you can be arrested. Never forget that lady. I don't even think anything became of it. The pregnant lady that was cursing expletives and carrying on. I'm not saying the officer was right, but the officer took out a pregnant lady that was cursing expletives to someone else when he warned her to stop. What became of that? What really happened there? Because 9 times out of 10, you will have your right and it's taken away because they're going to lean towards law enforcement side. Maybe someone could drop a comment and let me know what really happened in that case where we heard that the lady was taken out for cursing expletives in the public, and she was a pregnant lady. You gotta be careful. When you go out into the public, you have to have a certain demeanor. You have to carry yourself a certain way. And you always have to remember to be respectful. To be respectful when you go through those school gates, because a role model, whether you think so or not, because the kids are looking at you and they know that you are a parent. So it's a general thing across the board. You hear so many times, you hear the security guards at the gate saying a parent will come to the school and they're not dressed appropriately. They're in a short tank top and they're in a tiny shorts and they want to go into the school. They're telling them of the dress code, and the security guard at the front is either beaten, spat at, or worse. And we all hear these things in the news. Why are people so disrespectful to rules and regulations, especially at your kids' school? They're trying to make sure that when you come on school property, you're properly attired, because there are minors. Number one, there are minors present, and this is a school. So you have to have a certain decorum, right? When you enter the school, carry yourself a certain way on the school property. A lot of things could be avoided if we just remember that you have to show respect. Respect your fellow citizens. If you had gone in hearing so many different stories about what really happened, so we don't know exactly the details, the minute details of what really occurred. But generally speaking, there was some type of misbehavior going on at the school, and this parent was called onto the school property, and she went there and things didn't work out great. There was some type of disrespectful behavior and the police was called. And once the police was called, questions are being asked of that parent, then that's when all the stuff started to go downhill. So whether she pointed at the officer or whether she answered disrespectfully or she said none of your business, we don't know what came first. So we're not going to go there. But generally speaking, things started to go downhill. And only the two people or the people who were present knows exactly which order things occurred in. So I'm not going to comment on that. But generally speaking, there was some type of altercation. Now, how did it get to her hair pulling and biting? I don't understand how it reached to that point. It went overboard. And that should not have happened, because every single time the police officer is called, try to see the citizen as someone you're still going to protect and serve. It's like customer service. You show respect regardless. You're going to show respect, you get the respect. You can go about things without it escalating to a point, if you know what I mean. You come, you introduce yourself, you're being friendly, you talk to the person. You still have to show a certain level of professionalism and a certain level of authority, but you can still, show that you're there to serve and you're there to protect. I still don't know how it got to hair pulling and biting of fingers. We know that whatever, the parent holding on to the officer clothing, that was wrong, and not listening to instructions and following instructions, that are given to you by law enforcement, that is also wrong. That means you're not complying with the law and you're teetering right now. Exactly. So you have to make it clear to your kids that whenever they encounter law enforcement, they must cooperate. They must not be disrespectful. And 9 times out of 10, they will walk away without going to jail. Right? You hear over and over and over, whenever you're pulled over by an officer, try to be as respectful as possible, and no, of course, you're not giving up your rights as a citizen, but you're being respectful to the law. It's the law of the country, right? And you cooperate and you get out of things without getting entangled with the law, right? You know how it goes when you're pulled over. It's your word against the officer and all of this. So sometimes it's good to even record the conversation and have your phone out so that if anything happens, you have that as proof as to what really, when you were stopped. But please impress upon your kids over and over so they don't forget. Whenever you go out in the public, carry yourself a certain way. Don't get entangled in arguments. Just avoid arguments and confrontation. Sometimes they say you have to walk away from certain situations in order not to get caught up. Because sometimes we may go out, even say you're going to the supermarket and you're in the line and all of a sudden you see someone comes in and step in front of you in the line. And just to avoid the argument, you don't want to be confrontational. Sometimes you just leave that person because you don't know what frame of mind that person is in, and you let them go ahead. Not everything you can jump up and be aggressive and boisterous about. Because these days people are under so much stress, you don't even know how they will react. Because the least thing can just trigger off a lot of aggressive behavior, and some things lead to fight, and fights lead to even worse things. We saw what happened to that elder in the line, waiting. Allegedly, he stepped in front of others to use the ATM, and some type of argument escalated, and he lost his life right there. So in order for you to preserve yourself, to go back home, sometimes you have to just leave things alone and don't get entangled in arguments when you go outside. There's a lot of people with different temperaments and they're going through a lot of stuff and you don't know what's going on. So every single time you go outside, just remember, you just want to get out of a certain situation, you head back into your home in one piece. I see most people is against that type of behavior, but they had an issue with the officer biting and pulling the lady's hair. That person could be in a lot of pain after this type of physical entanglement with law enforcement. And things could have escalated from there very, very fast. So we're glad that no one lost their life. Now she has to face the court. Because, as I said, 9 times out of 10, it's like you're going to be fighting a losing battle when you come up against law enforcement. You can have your right in your hand and lose it if you're not being careful. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you're notified whenever we've uploaded a video. Thank you so much for joining us today. Take care of yourself and others. Bye for now. See you on the next video.